Hello everyone. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and let's go. Nick was just about to head upstairs to bed when he heard footsteps on the stairwell. Quiet, steady. He turned and saw Rachel descending in tight leather pants and a light sequin top, hair loose over her shoulders, eyes bright with expectation. She looked younger, not the weary woman he saw each morning with a coffee mug. "Where are you going?" he asked, forcing his tone neutral. Inside, a small unease prickled him. Suddenly his wife was dressed up, made up. Maybe she was visiting a friend. Maybe a party. Rachel paused on the bottom step, caught his gaze, and smiled like she had a secret tucked away. "You know, Nick," she said, stepping closer. "I was thinking, it's been ages since we've gone out. You're always buried in work and I'm suffocating in these four walls. We barely spend time together. So why not go to a club? Let loose, dance, listen to music, sip cocktails." She touched his arm lightly, tilting her head. Her eyes pleaded, her voice almost commanding. Nick hated clubs, the music too loud, the pressure to dance, crowds of tipsy kids. Lately, though, he realized they'd been living half asleep. Short evenings, work, money, the same dull routine. Their life felt like a string of expectations and quiet resentments. Maybe she needed an escape. Maybe he needed the shake, too. "To the club?" he asked, eyeing her outfit. "It's 9 o'clock and just getting started. We're not college kids, Ratch." He nearly blurted, "It's not for us," but stopped himself. She laughed, airy, reassuring, with a hint of mockery. "So what?" she parried. "I feel young. I really do. I want to feel alive again. Dance until I can't. Not worry about tomorrow. Just once." She pleaded. "Please." He hesitated, exhausted and reluctant, but the fire in her eyes drew him. She'd once known how to spark something in him. Maybe this was the thing that could pull them out of the rut. "Okay," Nick said, pushing himself up from the couch. "Just don't laugh at my awkward moves. I'm rusty." She beamed. "I promise. No laughing. Just a dance. A little celebration." "Thank you for agreeing." A small hope flickered in the house. Nick changed quickly into black jeans and a shirt he'd barely worn, grabbed a jacket and decided a leather one fit better, checked himself in the mirror, allowed a brief thought. Maybe we could actually have fun. Soon they were in the car heading for the club Rachel had mentioned for weeks. Neon signs flashed, bass thudded in the chest, a line at the door. Nick stood beside Rachel as the beat spilled out of the entrance, a mix of cigarette smoke and expensive perfume in the air. High heels, tight tees, people of every age, phones flashing selfies. Not even midnight yet. The bouncer glanced at their IDs and waved them in. Wristbands glowed, and they stepped into a heaving room where sounds blurred together. Bass, lights, laughter, conversations, the DJ shouting through speakers. "You like it?" Rachel yelled over the noise. Nick only nodded, shrugged. It would take getting used to. He followed her, weaving between groups of dancers, feeling awkward, plucked out of his comfort zone. Rachel glowed, eyes scanning the floor, hips already moving, ready to lose herself in the music. "Shall we get cocktails first?" she shouted. A drink wouldn't hurt, he thought, so he took her to the bar. The bartender shook and poured 2 drinks whose names Nick missed. He wasn't focused on labels, just trying to loosen up so he wouldn't seem stiff. They touched plastic cups and sipped. The sweet alcohol warmed him and a light edge of euphoria rose. "Not bad," he said, winking. "Told you." She smiled. "Thanks for doing this. Dance." She hauled him onto the floor. The crowd moved to the beat, beams cutting through the haze of smoke and lasers. Nick felt his heart sink with the music and tried a tentative sway that felt ridiculous. Rachel laughed approvingly and slid into the rhythm, sensual and effortless. "Just dance. Don't think," she shouted in his ear. "Let go." He closed his eyes, imagined another place, and the music softened in his mind. He found the rhythm, stopped worrying who looked, laughed, bumped shoulders. Embarrassment faded. Several tracks passed. Then the tempo picked up. Rachel pulled her hand away abruptly. "I'll be right back," she said. "Just a minute." He assumed the restroom and was left shuffling among dancers, jostled by 2 young men lost in their own moves. Feeling out of place, he edged out of the crowd, finished his drink, and considered another. Rachel still wasn't back. 10 minutes passed, the club a blur of noise and spilled drinks. He headed to the bar to refill and look for her. As he waited and paid, a prick of anxiety returned. Where was Rachel? He scrolled his phone. No messages. Network in the club crackled. Calls dropped. Maybe she was near the ladies' room, he reasoned. 2 sips in, worry nagged. He moved along the perimeter scanning corners. Then he saw her. In the densest spot on the floor, neon flashing, Rachel's hair unmistakable. She had her back to him, pressed against a young man in a white tee and jeans. At first it looked like dancing, then the man leaned in and kissed her, and she kissed him back, reaching closer. Nick nearly dropped his glass. For a beat he couldn't believe it. The desire to rush forward and pull her away flared, but horror and a cold resentment hit harder. Rage surged. The boy pulled back and whispered in her ear, and Rachel cuddled up to him, smiling. Blood rushed to Nick's head. His chest tightened. Maybe it was a joke, a game, an illusion, but her movements were deliberate, her gaze clear. He forced his way through the crowd, elbowed forward, and grabbed Rachel's shoulder. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, voice nearly lost in the music. Rachel recoiled as if stunned to be confronted. The guy in white looked bewildered, clearly not knowing who Nick was. Confusion, a flicker of guilt, and then a shrug crossed Rachel's face, edged with irritation. Before he could finish, she yanked her hand away and, trying to act bold, cut through the noise. "Let's get out of here," she yelled, not bothering to explain to the guy, seizing Nick's wrist and pulling him through the crowd. Dazed, Nick followed her to the exit, the bass still pounding behind them and his insides reeling. Outside the air was sharp and cool. They stepped aside where it was quieter. Nick wrenched his arm out. "What is this?" he hissed, keeping his voice low so guards nearby wouldn't hear. "I saw you making out with that guy." "What the hell, Rachel?" "Explain." She panted from the heat and shock of the floor, confusion flickering as if she couldn't believe she'd been caught. "It was just a prank. Just dancing. I don't know what came over me. It was stupid. I got carried away." She shook her head. "Don't make a tragedy out of this. It's nothing." He clenched his fists at how casually she dismissed it. "You call that nothing? How can it be that easy? Fine. Let's go home. I don't want this in front of the club. I need time to process." She shrugged. "Okay, let's go." They drove home in silence. It was past midnight when Nick slammed the door and flipped on the living room lights, staring at Rachel like a stranger. His thoughts raced. How could she? Maybe he had become boring. Maybe she missed feeling young, but why like this? "Tell me," he said shortly. She moved to the back of the room, sat on the couch edge, arms crossed. "Nick," she began. "It was just a kiss on the dance floor. He got swept up by the music and so did I. I wanted to feel something. I'm tired of us sitting around like old people. It's not cheating if you think I'm sleeping with him or whatever. I don't even remember his name." Her words sounded rehearsed. Nick couldn't fathom how she could shrug it off as a mood. "Do you take me for a fool?" he said, holding himself together. "This isn't the first time you've heard loud music, but you're making out with some 20-something. He flinched, realizing she'd said too much. "Okay, never mind. I was carried away by the atmosphere. The club, the youth." She shrugged and tried to insist it meant nothing. He stared, breath ragged, pain clenching him. She genuinely thought it wasn't serious. He had to choose between a huge scene and steady control. "What do you mean it doesn't mean anything?" he asked. "You crossed the line and now it's my fault? Am I supposed to be ashamed because I don't dance like a lunatic?" "I just wanted to have fun," she said wearily. "Stop turning me into a monster." Nick felt the conversation was pointless in that moment. Anger clouded reason. "Okay," he snapped. "I need to cool down. Go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow." She nodded and left. Alone, Nick's throat went dry. He poured water and drank slowly while thoughts spun. Maybe it was a one-off stupidity. Maybe forgiveness was possible. But her tone and the insincerity in her eyes told him otherwise. He knew her too well to miss the smallest false note. The next morning they pretended nothing had happened. He to work, she to her life. Resentment simmered under his attempts at rationality. Every memory of the kiss felt like a stab. Days passed and tension tightened. Rachel stayed cold, resentful that he wouldn't let the prank go. Nick decided he had to probe deeper. She had never done anything like this in their 10 years. One nagging detail stayed with him. When she said, "It's just a dance," her eyes wavered and her voice sounded forced. One evening he got home early with the hope of a calmer talk. A dark blue convertible sat in their driveway, Jessica's new car. The house was strangely quiet. Usually Jessica's visits meant laughter and noise. Nick checked the kitchen, found no one, then paused at the stairs as a shadow flickered upstairs. He listened. "You said he wasn't coming today," a muffled voice, definitely Jessica's. "I don't have time to hide." "I didn't know either," Rachel snapped. "Anyway, hurry. Come out soon." The voices faded and something inside him cracked. Who isn't coming? What are they hiding? He tiptoed to his office, shut the door to pretend he was gone, heart thudding. Footsteps approached. Through the ajar door he watched Jessica slip downstairs, pull on a wrap, and leave quickly, tossing a quick bye. Annoyance marked her face. Rachel stood in the hallway mute. When her friend left, Nick stepped out. Rachel jumped, not expecting him. "You're home early," she said dryly, smoothing her hair. "Yes," he replied. "Any secrets?" "No secrets," she answered, but her eyes flickered nervously. "We were just talking about girly stuff." He said nothing. Suspicion coiled in him. Her kiss at the club, Jessica's words. He'd been naive. Over the next days he paid closer attention until a bartender friend confirmed his fears. Rachel came to that club often, sometimes without him, often with Jessica. Why hide that? He realized it wasn't the club itself but that she had company there, likely the same one he'd seen. It wasn't an accident. The days crawled by and his suspicion hardened into conviction. A lie threaded through their home. He had to know the truth or he'd go mad. One weekend he acted. He tracked down the guy. A bartender remembered the young man. Tyler, new in town, usually with a woman named Rachel. The words made Nick sick. Nick dug up more. Tyler worked at a nearby auto shop. He decided to confront him eye to eye. Not with force but to see the connection up close. That evening, when Rachel said she was at a friend's, he drove to the shop as the day wound down. Tyler was stepping out, wiping his hands of grease. The air smelled of oil and rubber. Seeing Nick, he raised an eyebrow. "Hey, can I help you?" he asked. Nick moved in, jaw tight, facing the skinny kid, maybe 26 or 27, energetic and a little cocky. Tyler's eyes showed surprise and fatigue. "My name's Nick," he said, trying to steady the tremor in his voice. "I want to talk about Rachel." The young man blinked. "Rachel," he stammered. "From the club." "Yeah, from the club," Nick nodded. "The one you were dancing with and kissing. I don't know what else is happening, but there's clearly something between you two, right?" Tyler cast a quick look over Nick's shoulder as if looking for a way out, but then sighed. "Look, is this somewhere we can talk?" he asked, nodding toward the noisy room. "Come with me. There's an office over there. We'll sit." Nick followed in silence, forcing himself to stay composed. They stepped into a cramped office filled with a desk, a chair, 2 visitor seats, and stacks of parts catalogs. Tyler perched on the desk edge and shook his head. "If you're here to pick a fight, I don't want any trouble," he started. "I came to find out the truth," Nick said quietly. "She's my wife." "Did you know?" That made Tyler tense even more. "What? A wife? Really?" He frowned. "No, I didn't know. She never mentioned it. I saw her at the club a few times. She told me she was single and just wanted to hang out. We texted a bit. Sometimes she'd stop by. I thought it was casual, no strings." Nick fell silent, realizing this young man might be sincere. Tyler looked unnerved, not like a bold liar but like someone genuinely surprised. "What makes you think she's single?" Nick pressed. "She didn't have a ring on, for one." Tyler laughed a sour laugh. "She said she doesn't like jewelry." "What's it to me? I didn't ask for details. There are 1,000 stories like that. I'm 26, single, working, out on weekends. I see a beautiful woman, we dance, we kiss, she comes over. How was I supposed to know she had a husband at home?" Nick covered his face and breathed deeply. She'd been to his place. That confirmed his worst suspicion. It wasn't just a kiss or a dance. It was an affair. Tyler regretted getting involved, not out of love but because he wanted no part of trouble. Yet the real betrayer wasn't him. Rachel had deceived both of them. A silence followed. A swell of anger and hurt rose inside Nick. What good would beating up this Tyler do? He looked more wrong than villainous. "Sorry, man," Tyler added with a sigh. "If I'd known she had a family, I wouldn't have gotten involved. I don't want trouble. This is crazy. Tell me what to do. Do you want me out of her life entirely? I never meant to hurt you." Nick let out a bitter chuckle. "It's not about you. She's been lying to me the whole time, and to you too, apparently." "What's the matter?" Tyler asked. "Nothing. Thanks for being honest. That's it, I guess. Goodbye." Nick turned to leave. Tyler, uncertain, only shook his head. Nick walked out of the shop, slid into his car, and rested his forehead on the steering wheel for a long while. It was confirmed. This wasn't a one-off or a careless mistake. His wife had been cheating deliberately, likely for months, and the other man hadn't known she was married. When Nick arrived home, Rachel was already there, seated at the table with a glass of wine and an odd smile. "Hi," she said. "I picked up a Chardonnay. Want to have a drink and talk?" He regarded her with detachment. Not long ago he'd seen her as beautiful, desirable, beloved. Now her looks tasted bitter. She was a fraud, juggling a nightclub lover and a home with a husband while pretending everything was normal. "Do we have something to talk about?" he asked, removing his jacket. "Of course," she replied with that strange smile, trying to catch his eye. "I want us to forget that stupid night. We can start over." Nick's grin held no warmth. "Why don't you just tell me the truth? What actually happened?" Rachel scowled. "Nick, I already told you. It was a kiss. A moment of weakness. I like dancing. I'm going through a rough patch. I wanted to feel young, but I don't want to ruin our family over nothing." Her words rang hollow. Nick felt something inside coil tighter, poised to snap. Then he asked softly, "Why didn't Tyler know you were married?" Her lips went pale. Her face froze, and Nick saw her realization break her lies into dust. "You were at Tyler's," she squeaked. "Yes," he confirmed. "And at least he was honest about seeing you. You've kissed more than once, haven't you? You've been to his place. You never told him you had a husband, did you?" Her voice trembled. "It's not what you think." But he wasn't listening anymore. In that instant, all the pieces clicked. Late nights at the club, Jessica covering for her, the casual kisses on the dance floor, the pattern of infidelity she'd been living. "You know," he said, holding back his anger, not wanting his voice to rise, "I loved you. I thought we were going through something together. Now I see you crossed a line, and you'd have kept lying if I hadn't uncovered the truth." Fear filled her eyes. Perhaps she had relied on him being quiet, reserved, calm, not capable of tearing their marriage apart like paper. "Nick," she whispered. "Yes, I've been seeing someone. But it's because of your indifference. You're always busy. You don't pay attention. I needed to feel alive. He's young, passionate. It felt like an adventure. But I'm here with you. Must I accept this?" Nick answered coldly. "Adventure. Passion. You're making a fool of me." She reached to touch his hand, and he recoiled. Despair flashed across her face. "So what now? Do you want a divorce?" she asked, testing him. "I don't want anything," he said, heading toward the stairs. "I want nothing else to do with you. Go pack your things and leave, or I'll pack them and toss them out myself. Your choice." Rachel froze, not immediately believing his seriousness. Indignation lit her expression. "How can you do this?" she wanted to shout, but she couldn't find a convincing defense. "Don't be ridiculous, Nick," she hissed angrily. "It's just an affair. You're overreacting." He smiled grimly. "If it's just that to you, then my reaction will match. I'm not going to live in a house with someone who goes clubbing, kisses others, lies, and pretends it's normal." He clenched his fists, waves of rage bubbling beneath, but he restrained himself. It mattered more to end this than to make a spectacle. They stood in silence for a long beat, staring at each other as if testing whether anything could be salvaged. Then Nick said flatly, "Go pack." She staggered as if to rush him but held back. Without a flicker of sympathy, he watched her climb the stairs with a frozen, furious look. Nick moved into their bedroom, opened the closet, and silently began pulling her clothes down into a suitcase. She scrambled, frantically stuffing things into a bag. "Stop it," she hissed. "This is my house too. I bought this house before we were married," he cut in. He didn't utter the word traitor, though it hovered on his tongue. He gathered everything that belonged to her and tossed it into his suitcase. She stood there crying, less from remorse than from wounded pride. Half an hour later her packed case sat in the hallway. She looked at Nick, disbelief written on her face. He waited by the door. "Go," he said, exhausted. "Nick, are you really kicking me out?" she whispered through sobs. "Yes," he replied without glancing at her tears. They weren't tears of regret anymore, but anger at being exposed. "Consider this a day ended," he said. She exhaled, wiped her face on her sleeve, picked up her suitcase, and walked out the door. On the porch she paused. Nick followed. "You just wanted to dance," he said, meeting her gaze with a quiet, steady voice that held a hard resolve. "And I want to live without a prostitute." She bit her lip, with fury or despair he couldn't tell, and he didn't care. He closed the door. Silence fell over the house. Nick sat alone for the first time in ages, feeling both a raw ache and an odd relief. Pain because his marriage lay in ruins and everything he loved seemed gone. Relief because there were no more illusions, no more deceit, no more hollow hope. He walked to the living room, where Rachel's perfume still lingered, sat on the couch, and shut his eyes. The club scene replayed in his mind. The lights, the music, her body in another man's arms, Tyler's words. "I didn't know she was married." It was over. He knew he'd made a move he couldn't take back. He refused to live a life shrouded in lies. Outside, the night breeze stirred the trees and carried cigarette smoke from a neighbor. The empty house echoed with his steps. A small spark of hope remained that someday he'd find someone who wouldn't lie. For now, he needed time to process and to learn how to move forward. To live, as he said, without a prostitute, without betrayal and ceaseless falsehood. He rose, turned off the living room light, and paused over family photos where they still smiled. He didn't want to look at them now, so he turned them face down. Let them stay in the past, he thought bitterly. Then he climbed to the empty bedroom, hoping sleep would offer some reprieve. Outside the door where their shared life had once flowed, a silence felt like a new beginning. Maybe not joyful, but at least honest. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you liked it, please don't forget to like and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. See you in the next one.